Hey everyone, welcome to Relationship Renegades on Fun for Life Radio. I'm one of your hosts, Rachele Brooke Smith.
And I'm Emilio Palafox.
And today we have a super special guest who is super near and dear to my heart. She's one of my best friends, and you'll soon learn one of the most incredible women you'll ever meet. Welcome to the show, Lauren Donahue, founder of Lolly Coffee and Unplugged Mornings.
Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited. You two are an inspiration, and I'm absolutely honored to be here today.
Woo woo!
Yes.
Awesome. All right, well, if you're listening right now, you better tune in and tune in good, because Lauren's story is just one of the most profound, incredible stories, especially because everything that you've gone through, you are still one of the most joyful, uplifting, positive, loving humans. Like, you guys understand, the moment I met her, she made me feel like $1 million. And it always reminds us of the quote that we talk about all the time.
Yeah.
People won't remember what you said, but they'll remember how you made them feel. And Lauren has a gift of making people feel so loved and special.
Yes.
But you went through an incredible, crazy past. And I want people to get to hear about it. So will you tell us a little bit about who you are, where you came from, and your journey to get you here?
Well, you know it's going to be a good conversation when you're crying in the first minute.
I'm up next.
Here we go. Here we go. So I came from a very small town in Kansas. I grew up there where I say I had the honor of living with my grandparents, and my grandfather was able to coach me and mentor me and not only be a grandfather, but also a father figure in my life. So pretty much anything I say in this conversation that sounds awesome and you're like, that's wisdom, that's for my grandpa. That's definitely not for me. Pretty much everything that comes out of my mouth, I'm like, thanks for that, Gramps. So I grew up there in Kansas where there wasn't much else to do besides play sports. And so I played just about every sport you can list. And I learned discipline and about mindset, and being an athlete, I feel like there's just something about never giving up and pushing through the hard times. That is what got me to where I am today, because there have been a lot of hard times, and there have been, just like anybody goes through, we all go through different things. And I think you have two choices in that. One, you can be a victim, or two, you can be the victor. And so I've chose to be happy and to be the victor and to have that joy in my spirit, because I don't ever want anyone to feel like they don't belong and that they don't have a reason or purpose to be here. And so it's kind of my mission in life when I meet people, is to leave them with a bigger smile on their face, remind them of who they are, because they know it's deep inside of there, and encourage them to keep going.
So much to say here, and so far, thank you so much for sharing all that. Whether it was back then or even now, even this year, you've gone through a lot of things, losing some very important people in your life. And, when things like that happen, throughout your entire life, what are some ways that you get back into connection, get back into the state that we're talking about now? What are some things you do?
Yeah, it's interesting you use the word state, because last night I chose to do one of my own workouts called Update Your State. And I was actually letting people know ways that you can update your state, because mine has been at a lower frequency and a lower vibration. And I did lose my grandfather just over a month ago now, and he has been my rock. He's the reason I started the coffee company, and really that I've done anything productive in my life. I attribute that all back to him. So losing him, I was not prepared, and I know you can't prepare for anything like that, but I'd never experienced grief in that way. And I realized it was because he wasn't just my grandfather, right? He was the father figure, the coach, the mentor, the friend. So I felt like I lost my whole team, the whole squad. So I'm grieving each of those individual people in one person. But the way that I'm able to keep going and keep encouraging others to keep going is by doing daily movement. I say movement is my medicine. It always has been. In 2018, I got really sick. I burned out. I couldn't work out for 4 months. It was a wild time. And the way that I got back into motion was by giving myself a challenge to run a mile a day. And I felt like Forrest Gump, because I ended up doing that for...
Love Forrest Gump.
Love it.
I know. But it was just one of those things where I went for 444 days in a row with running a mile a day.
Wow.
And it healed me. And I believe that movement and just it updated my state, right? By getting the blood flowing, getting out. It was kind of meditative, because I would actually run without music or headphones or anything, just 10 minutes, like go out and run. So that's one of the ways I update my state and daily movement. And it could be yoga, it can be stretching, it can be anything, right? But just moving the body. And I'm in a challenge right now that's really cool because we're doing how many burpees you can do in a minute, a daily workout, and then 10,000 steps, which I also find to be really meditative, to just get out and do your meetings, walking, things like that. But I also love to go to reading. I do unplugged mornings. I light a candle, have my coffee, journal. There's so many beautiful ways that I feel like we can update our state and keep moving forward. So those are just a few that work for me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I really want to
just
go
like
back
Rachel.
to, yeah, I mean, I 100% agree.
Yeah.
Movement is medicine.
Yeah.
And as anyone listening that's going through a hard time right now, I think sometimes when you're really at your lowest point, it's so easy. Most of us want to isolate. We don't want to move. We don't want to get outside. We just want to just be the victim and, just cry and feel low. What has helped you? Because I know you've been through, we'll get to this, so continue to listen, but some extremely difficult things from a really, really young age. What's helped you, even knowing that movement is medicine, or knowing the tools, but how do you get yourself to use those tools even when you don't want to, or even when you don't feel like it?
I'm glad you asked that, because it wasn't until recently that I realized that both of those could coexist, that I can be crying and moving at the same time. Mm-hmm. And when I started that mile a day challenge, the first 7 days, I was coughing up blood. I was crying. I couldn't breathe, because I hadn't moved in 4 months when I first started. It gave me so much compassion for people that are just starting out on their fitness journey. I felt like I was fully starting over from an infant, because there wasn't even a time in 35 years, or I guess I was 33 at the time, that I had not moved. Even if I had broken bones, I still would be doing movement. I would figure out a way. Me too. And, every single day. It's but this was the first time I was flat on my back and not able to. So I was starting over as a beginner. Mm-hmm. So it was really hard. So I cried and I kept running. Mm-hmm. And I think that for a long time, I saw crying and being vulnerable as a weakness. And I was embarrassed and I was ashamed, and I never wanted anybody to see me do that. And so I would hide it, right? And then I'm not in full alignment, and I'm not being fully myself, which means I can't be fully loved and fully known and fully seen. So I think that's some breakthrough that I had recently, that those can coexist together. But looking way back, how I coped at the time, I would call it scarcasm, because I would tell jokes. Anytime something crazy, violent was happening around me, people are fighting arguments, or it was specifically happening to me, I would tell a joke. I would do something to lighten the mood, and I would also be extremely helpful. So I would, let me pick that up. Let me take the trash out. Let me do this. Let me organize this. So it's funny because I see how those tendencies have stayed with me, and they look like OCD. They look like, right? I want to make sure everything's clean so I don't get yelled at, or I don't get in trouble or whatever. And it's at 35 years old, I'm still doing those things oh, I'm going to be in trouble if I leave a dish out, right? And it's no, absolutely not.
Yeah.
Absolutely not. But it stays in there until you have that awareness and breakthrough. And actually at one of my retreats in Austin a couple months ago, I guess maybe it was a month ago now, we had a guide taking us through an inner child visualization, and I was bawling, and I wanted to leave the room, which would be my old pattern, because I'm the leader, right? So I'm supposed to be holding space for people, and I was the one that was the most impacted and affected in this moment. And I went to get up. It was so funny. I'm my excuse is going to be, I have to go get napkins. I got to blow my nose. This is such an intense cry, right?
Yeah.
And I got up, and of course I looked down, and napkins appear out of nowhere. I'm those have not been there the whole time.
I love it.
I heard the napkin be sit your ass down.
Yeah. Someone comes and blows your nose for you. You're wait, what? Yeah.
I was oh my gosh. And so I sat down and I cried out. And later on, it was really cool, because a lot of the guests were it was really cool to see you open up and crack open, and it gave us the same space to be able to do that. Yeah. So they were able to evolve more and have more of a transformation because I was willing to go there. But that particular breakthrough was around needing to follow the rules. Like, and I always need to follow the rules. I'm afraid I'm going to be in trouble. Even in that moment, I'm like, the space that we were in, I'm like, is someone going to come and say we can't be in the space? Are we going to get in trouble? Are we going to, like, all of these things? And I was like, wow, I'm so lost in the logistics. I can't be present. Like, I can't be in this moment. And so it was like, release that. And then I remember opening my eyes, and for the first time I saw this sign on the wall that said, like, club room rules. And I thought, I haven't seen those in 4 days either. I better go read them. I'm like, no, stay here. You're not.
Yeah.
It's like boom, 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 boom. Like, are you going to, like, you feel it, you're breaking through, but can you stop yourself from doing that? Or can you just leave the dish? Or can you, like, all of those things, can you do that? And that's when that whole, like, everything can coexist together. And also, I'm not 6 years old anymore. And there was a lot of stuff that came up in that. So, yeah.
Wow. Yeah, I got to say, if for those listening, and if you're just tuning in, you're listening to Relationship Renegades on Fun for Life Radio, where we're talking to Lauren Donahue. And you said a lot in this beautiful story about things, how they can coexist, both when you can cry and you can move, and you brought up some things in the retreat. And I think for those listening, there were so many juicy nuggets there, a lot. And I'm trying to do my best to really stay on path, but highlight some of the things that I think are important. What reminds me, one of the things that's just coming up to me very strong right now in the moment is, and this kind of ties back not only what you just said, but also with the very hard time of your grandfather passing this year that you talked about. Something that you shared that allowed me to have that coexisting of various kind of feelings and whatnot. And I'll just kind of go to the punchline, and it's this. You talked about that the last gift, and this was just kind of researching more about you and everything, that you talked about the last gift that your grandfather gave to you was that it's okay to feel. And I remember you talking about, like, it was a breath work session, and that really just, like, hit me hard. And not only for me, but I think the masses right now, I think regardless of what's going on, no matter what's going on, I think there's a lot of people that are numb out there and that are going through the motions, that don't know about this coexisting thing that we're talking about. And to feel is so important. And I think it's an intelligence. And I think especially with men, right, and toxic masculinity, there's not a lot of men that talk about that, want to feel that. And so for me, it was a gift to see you. Like, my gosh, I was seeing the Instagram story of you on FaceTime with your grandfather and his last breath, and seeing you, share your feelings, and seeing him, and I'm witnessing my father, because I'm like, man, he's very unhealthy right now, and you never know what's going to happen, and life is fragile. And it just struck a chord with me so much that, like, I needed to hear that also. So, like, thank you, grandfather, right? Because it is okay to feel, and I know that, but for me, and I think I'm speaking for a lot of men out there with the men's circles that I'm a part of, that it's like, and even it's not even conscious, like subconsciously, sometimes I'm just like, oh, like literally a friend of mine passed away last night. And like, it like, it happens, but it's surreal. And I don't know, I can't believe it yet. I'm still in that phase, but sometimes I'll just get lost in the work and in this stuff and whatever. And it's like, I'm like, why am I so numb to this? Why is it not hitting me as hard? And I think, and this is not about me, but I just wanted to kind of share that like, oh man, like seeing you allowed me to feel so much more. And I miss the feelings when I can feel so much.
Wow.
Like I miss that. And when you were on there, when I saw you, man, it was like, wow, it feels so good to feel again. Cause I feel like I feel there are times where we get disconnected from that. And I know I've said a lot here, but I think I wanted to share that so much because it's so what's happening right now for me. And I think a lot of people. So, I know a lot there, but I just wanted to say thank you for one, your grandfather's gift, but also you like sharing that and I think impacting the world in so many ways just with that.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. That it is safe to feel. It was so many things opened up, right? It's safe to feel in relationship, in my body, with myself, with so many things that I was blocking. I was self-protecting myself. But again, when we're self-protecting, we're blocking our blessings and the other people that want to come into our life and be there for us and with us and do life with us.
And say that one more time, because I think that quote is so great. We're blocking our blessings, right?
Blocking our blessings.
We're blocking our blessings
when we're afraid to feel, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because we aren't allowing people, things, anything into our intimate space. And I've just noticed from that day when I wrote down, it is safe to feel, I've been feeling everything. It's almost like it actually heightened my awareness and senses, right? I can smell more. I can see more colors. I can hear more things. Like I'm like hearing things all over the place. I'm looking behind me. I'm like, wow, I'm like tapped into another realm. I'm like with people, and there's like a lot of different things. Like even like you were saying, before I was numb. I couldn't even like, I don't think I could smell or hear or see or anything. My senses were gone. So it just like cracked me open to be able to feel everything. And I think that's so beautiful.
We've talked about this before, Lauren, and I think with our friend Nora as well, is that sometimes when we're feeling so much, it can feel overwhelming, and we forget that, like, wait, if I'm not feeling something, that means that I'm not alive, right?
Yeah.
The feeling of some people are like, oh, I don't want to feel sad, or I don't want to feel so much. Even joy can be scary for people, but that realization of like, wait, like if I'm not feeling though, like that means I am not alive. And so I think that's just really important for people to remember that, like you said, we're all going to go through crazy challenges, just like fact of life, part of being human. And, that it's really like what you do in those moments that make the biggest difference. And I really want to get into your story and what makes you so special and unique and so strong. But before we do that, we're going to leave a little cliffhanger and go on our first little segment that we do, rapid fire questions.
Yeah, and before we go in there too, I mean, guys, if you haven't heard of Lolly Coffee, stay tuned, because there's a lot of good things about, there's a lot of coffees out there. This is one very special. We have it here.
Special coffee.
I used to be away from coffee for a long period of time because it was so toxic. It was very acidic, all these things. And the way that this one was making me feel, Lauren, okay? I got the feels.
Yeah.
Got the feels.
Yes.
So stay tuned for some Lolly Coffee. We're going to jump to rapid fire. Rachel will start it off.
Absolutely. Okay. Lauren, are you ready? These are rapid fire questions, quick responses, quick answers. You can't think about them. Gut instincts. Okay. So if you had only one sense, right? Hearing, touch, sight, whatever. Which would it be? Only one. Smell. Really?
Yeah, I'm very, very impacted by smells. Like I either really like something or really don't like something based on the smell.
Oh, I love it.
Before I go to my next question, just because we can do this, because it's a show. How many, speaking of smells, what's your favorite smell? Like, what does it bring you back to? What's the most nostalgic smell for you?
I really like, mine's a perfume. Like, I really like Flower Bomb perfume, and it just makes me so happy. And there's a Burberry, I think it's Burberry Touch or something like that for men. Like it could be like a not attractive man and he's wearing it, and I'm like my head just like snaps, and I'm like, I could do it. I can do it.
I love it.
Men, remember that. All you men out there, she's in LA. She's ready. No. All right. Well, maybe that wasn't my question. I'm gonna guess. You let me slide on that. Okay. So let's do this one. Speaking of men, what is the first thing you look for in a partner and or friend?
It's how they treat other people. Like, are they going to show up? Like, I had a dinner the other night with someone, and when it came time to tip, asked me, like, what should I tip? And I didn't know the total of the bill. And I just said $147. Just like, because I like that number, right?
Oh, man.
And he was like, okay. And just did it. And I was like, okay, and he still didn't tell me how much it was, and hopefully he's not listening to this, because when he went to the bathroom, I took a little peek, and it was like $127. And so this guy got a $147 tip, and I thought that was the hottest, sexiest thing ever. I'm like, that's what I'm talking about.
Yes.
Like you just made Edwin was the server. I'm like, you just made his like day, week, life. I don't know. I know that it would make me happy. So I like that, like big tippers and just people that will go above and beyond for others, like people they don't know, like strangers.
Oh, I love that. I love that story. What a great story. Okay. Third question. What is your definition of success?
My definition of success is how you make people feel. Like, how do you leave people? Do you leave them with a bigger smile? Because your energy is felt. So it's like when you walk in the door, are people like, oh my gosh, yay? Or are they like ready for you to walk out the door? Like, I cannot wait for this person to get out the door. So I love that. That's success in my book, is like how people feel when they're around you.
Oh, so good. Could you imagine because I think that definition of success is so misunderstood, right? It's like how much money you have, whatever, like how much what cars you have, like all this different stuff, and how imagine everyone listening, how different the world would be if that was the mass majority of people's definition of success.
Yeah,
like
if
just,
people focused on that.
Just different. It would be a different world.
Well, I think the world is starting to really understand the importance of energy in every sense of that word. And I think that, the 10, 15, 20, 30, 40 plus years that's going to matter. And I think it'll be a beautiful place when that starts to matter.
So let's start to change it, guys. Let's change it right now. Everyone listening, change it up.
How are you going to walk into the room? Very good. Very good. So last, but certainly not least, last question here. How has your perspective on the world changed over time?
That's a good one.
That's really good. My perspective on the world, you just know more as you get older. You know more. I think as a young child, we have no idea what's going on. We don't know how other people are living. And I think traveling has changed my perspective on the world and going to different places. And instead of going to the 5-star resorts, like renting a car and going to the other side of the island to see how people really live in these places that we go for vacation, but that's like their actual life. And I remember the most impactful was when I went to Africa to hike Kilimanjaro, but a portion, I think 20% of what we paid for that went to this village, and we got to go to the village and meet the kids and hang out with them for a whole day. These were the happiest kids I have ever met in my entire life. Biggest smile on their face. They had nothing. Nothing. They were like sleeping outside in the dirt. They were happy to get a banana. It was just like, they were so grateful, and just to like talk to us and hold our hands. And I'm like, if we could all be like that, right? The perspective, like when you actually know more, you can do more, you can do better. Yeah. And so I think that's how my perspective, before I just was a small town kid from Kansas and that's all that existed. But now I know there's such a bigger world out there, and people are going through so many different things. And when you can tap in, you can actually, I think, go in and do some work.
I love that. So powerful.
Wise words from Lauren Donahue, everybody.
Well, and speaking of children and childhoods, I would love to ask you questions about your childhood. Because I think, on the show, we talk a lot about that pretty much everything stems back to childhood, right? Like all of our issues, our patterns. One of our favorite quotes that we say often is, if you don't heal your childhood wounds, they'll show up in your relationships. And so a lot of the work that we do with people is talking about like, hey, like what kind of patterns did you pick up as a kid? And, Lauren, when I heard your story, of like growing up and what it was like, I was just like, oh my gosh, I feel like if I went through what you went through, I don't know how I would be. Like, I really don't. I don't know how I would be. And I have so much admiration for you because of the way that you are. And I want people to understand where you come from and that story. And so what was it like for you as a kid? Because maybe there's kids listening to this who are in a really difficult situation. And I want them to know that they're not alone, and to give them hope that like they can still become just like you.
Aw. As you were just even asking that question, I thought about, again, how two things can coexist. You can have a very toxic environment and a very positive environment at the same time. And that's what I felt like at home. It was very toxic, and I always felt like I was walking on eggshells, and I was very scared to be playful and be myself. That was one of the breakthroughs that came up at the last retreat too, is that I'd be really playful and like scared. So like, and then I'd get in trouble and get yelled at. And that still happens like in my relationships, where I like jump out of something and the person's mad at me. I'm like, oh my gosh, like I'm just being playful and I love doing this stuff. So it's just funny because it will repeat and show up for you again if that's still a trauma. And so I think about that. If it wasn't so toxic at home, I never would have had the opportunity to live with my grandparents, who were the best role models, who showed me what true unconditional love is, and were married for 70 years. They celebrated 70 years before my grandfather passed away. And to see that and be in that, I'm like, wow, I would go through that storm and I would go through that toxicity again to have this on the other side of it. And so it's like, I feel like when people are like, well, if you had a choice, what would you? I'm like, I actually would have all of the like toxicity, emotional abuse, all that kind of stuff to be able to have the other thing. Not that you have to have that to have the other, but that just happens to be my story. And I'm so great. I wouldn't live in California if it wasn't for my story. There's so many things I wouldn't know, both of you, if that didn't happen, right? So I look at everything as, I know it's cliche to say everything happens for a reason, but I do think it happens for a purpose. And we don't always see it at the time. It feels like the end of the world, and it feels really hard, and it feels like it's never going to end. And then you get on the other side of it and realize every single thing, person had to happen in that order for you to be where you are now. And when I'm sitting here right now, like feet on the ground, hand on heart, hand on belly, I wouldn't want to be anywhere else. Like this is so beautiful and so amazing. So I'm able to look back and be grateful for all of that. And I think another huge breakthrough. So I would say these breakthroughs are like popcorn. It took a while for the popcorn to start popping, but these last like 4 to 6 months have been unreal, the amount of growth. And I've been, dating and in relationships and things like that. And one of the biggest things that came up for me is I realized all the way back to the womb, like all the way back to my mother's womb, I was a secret, I was hidden, I was a lie. And so in that, it's like, even in the womb, I knew those things, and coming out, I was a secret, I was hidden, I was a lie. And then I got to be invited into the lie, to keep the lie, right? And all that kind of stuff. So now I see in relationships where I want to be fully known, seen, heard. I didn't know that 100% until recently, when I felt like I was being hidden, I was a secret, I was a lie, all of that kind of stuff. And I had to track back to like, what's that trigger coming from? Like, why is that bothering me so much? And it went all the way back that I want to break that generational pattern right there. I want to not move forward with that, and to be able to voice that and say it, because that's something I would normally keep in. That's like a really hard thing to talk about. But to be able to say, hey, I have this awareness and this is not okay. And I'm not going to like move forward with this because it reminds me of my past, and it's not a good thing for anyone to not know the truth. So that was a really big breakthrough there. So to answer your question, it's I go back and look at everything and realize how it was for me, that it was happening for me and not happening to me.
Can you, for our audience, Lauren, and thank you so much for sharing all of that, can you elaborate more about what that means when you say, it was a lie and there was a secret, and for our audience that maybe doesn't know, can you kind of explain what that means?
Yeah. So my parents, my real father and mother, were together for 10 years, and they decided not to like move forward, like getting married and things like that. So my mom met this other guy, and they ended up getting married. My mom got pregnant in the middle of that. And my real dad like left to move to California. And so then they ended up raising me. And for about 12 years, I thought that was my mom and dad. And that was the last name I had. And I have a sister that's 6 years younger. And so I was like, we're full sisters, all that kind of stuff. But there was this other person in my life that I actually called my uncle. And I was very connected to him. And I knew from like a very early age that it was more than just like I like you, you're a cool person. I mean, I used to tell people I was going to marry him when I grew up because he was hot. So that was a shocker. Yeah. But they say you want to marry someone like your dad, but not actually marry your dad.
But you didn't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's actually a funny story too in itself. But around age 12, I decided I was going to do some reverse psychology, I guess that's what you would call it. And I called my uncle to tell him that my mom told me that he was my real dad. And he started crying and was like, oh, she finally told you? And I'm like, well, wait, what?
Yeah, I'm getting the chills.
I was like, I have been praying for this. I like wanted to manifest this. I knew what manifestation was when I was little, and I prayed every day that he was my dad, or that he would be my dad. And I even asked him to tell people he was my dad when I was younger too. Like if we went to do something, like, can you tell people you're my dad? So yeah, and then I called my mom, did the same thing, like,
Because you hung up on him, right? Didn't you hang up on him right after he told you hung up? And then called your mom?
and did the same thing.
Yeah.
Uncle told me he's my real dad. She started crying. He told you all this stuff. So anyways, that's how it came. Then I 3-wayed him. I got back on there. Jerry Springer stuff, whatever.
You are the father. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, are you mad? And I'm like, I could not be happier. Like, I am so happy.
The truth.
This makes way more sense because here's the thing. It didn't make sense.
Right.
None of it made sense to me, even as a 12-year-old. And even before that, like, it didn't make sense. So when finally the truth came out, it all made sense. And that's like how I felt in these past relationships. I'm like, when you just tell the truth, it makes sense. And then you can move forward, right? But when it doesn't make sense, there's probably a reason why it doesn't add up. It doesn't make sense. There's something that's not being spoken.
Yeah.
And again, that's your prerogative if you want to speak it or not, but don't keep someone in a relationship with you. Let them go. Like if you aren't able to be fully honest and share with them and everything what's going on, because all parts are welcome. If I'm in a relationship with you, all the parts, but that means all the parts, not just a couple of the parts that you want to share, but what are the hidden ones? What are the ones you really don't want to share? Because that's going to make me feel closer to you.
Gosh, this is such a huge topic that, I mean, it
so
definitely
beautiful.
like is, for anyone listening right now, I mean, I've goosebumps. I mean, and there's so much more to that story, but again, like imagine being a 12-year-old little kid and going through that. And and not only, like you had talked about before, the toxicity in your home that you grew up in was also there. And, to gone through that as a child and then find that out and to still be so loving, so kind, so understanding, so compassionate, be like, nope, I'm just going to find the good. I'm just going to find the good. That's a whole thing in itself. And then on top of that, your other point of just like, I think hidden truths just ruin so many relationships because we're scared to tell the truth. That was my story. I messed up so many relationships because I was scared to tell the truth because my pattern was from a young age, if I tell the truth, I'll get in trouble. And I had to would not be here in this relationship 100% if I wouldn't have learned in a really painful way over and over and over again till I finally learned the lesson. Hey, it's actually the other way around. Because I almost didn't tell him so many things and thinking that if I told him, he wouldn't love me anymore. And I had to rewire it to say, no, if I don't tell him, he won't love me anymore. But that's big.
And you're right, Lauren, like when she did tell me those things, she thought I was going to leave her and, not like her or love her anymore. And it was like what you said, no, the exact opposite. Like I value truth and transparency and honesty and vulnerability. And so when she was doing that, no matter how hard it was, my first thing was I can't imagine how hard that was for you to tell me. And I'm so thankful and love you even more because of this. And those were my words, right? And it was and because I've had it, and this is a societal thing, but I had so many women in my past that would just lie to me in front of my face as well as behind my back. And it's just so no matter what it is, I think the truth will set you free and your relationship's free, right? It's a real deal. And I love that you said, if it doesn't feel right, there's something, it's probably true, whether you call it your gut, your inspired thought, your intuition, God, listen to it, right?
Yeah.
What's helped you learn in the past when you've been in relationships of any kind, family, friends, romantic, when you have that gut feeling that something is off, something doesn't feel right, but they're not telling you the truth. They're making you feel dumb for thinking that. What has helped you get through that and move on? Because I think so many people, our listeners, our community and relationship renegades, get stuck in those same things where we want something to be so good, so bad, we hold on to it, even though we know that there's something that feels off. How have you been able to break through and just move on from relationships of any kind that don't feel good for you?
I love this question because I'm looking back, I'm seeing relationships when I had that feeling. And back then they would tell me, no, you're wrong. You're crazy,
For
blah,
sure.
blah, blah, all the things. And if I couldn't prove it, there was a part of me that's what if they're telling the truth? And this is just my trauma. And I'm not trusting them. They seem like they're being honest about this, but my gut's telling me no. So I would stay. And I would stay and stay until I would then find out, like, some girl would reach out to me and exactly to a T, like where he said it was the vending machine, but it was actually his car. And she's like, the car, this, right? So I'm like, okay, so now what I do is when I have that feeling, I'm like, you know what? It actually doesn't matter if this person did this or didn't do it. I have the feeling and I don't want to have the feeling. So whatever they're doing, if it's causing me to have this feeling, then I don't feel safe. I don't feel secure. I don't feel protected. Like, I don't feel like thought of and a priority in this situation. So I'm going to leave. So before I would stay for a long time till I had the proof, right? Now I'll leave without the proof because I like actually trust myself.
So powerful.
Do you try to have a conversation at all, or you just...
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Definitely a conversation.
Yeah.
Which before too, I was a runner, so I would just like peace out. Now I do want to hear from them. Like, I do want to say, hey, I'm having this feeling. What is this? You know, and based on that too, like how they make me feel in that conversation.
Yeah,
how
right,
I feel.
right.
Like if I feel like what they're saying is honest and true, then I'll continue the conversation and stay in it. But if I'm just like, you know what, again, not adding up, doesn't make sense, and I'm not feeling any better, and my nervous system is so dysregulated, I don't want to feel dysregulated. I don't want, like, I start to have physical, my hair will start falling out, I'll get rashes, like my body reacts, even if I'm trying to tell myself, it's okay. It's not true. You know, if my body's physically reacting, it's something's going on.
Yeah.
So powerful. And I feel like those points, everyone listening, how many times has your body spoken to you or speaks to us and we don't listen? And I've had massive breakthroughs recently where I'm like really learning that this body we've been given isn't just like a meat suit. It's an intelligence. Like there is like divine intelligence within all of us. And if your body's speaking to you, it's legit, and you better pay attention. And the faster you do and the more you learn to trust yourself, like that self-trust comes from paying attention. But the awareness of like, so if anyone listening is going through something and your gut is firing, your body is sending signs, like physical illness can be a direct reflection of, you know, something going on in your actual life. You know, I mean, that's such a huge topic there, but just that awareness is massive.
Yes, absolutely. Well, if you guys are just tuning in, you're listening to Relationship Renegades on Fun for Life Radio, where we're talking with Lauren Donahue, founder of Lolly Coffee, and, you know, as well as Unplugged Mornings. And I want to start talking about these things because I think these are fantastic things. I feel like I think when people are stressed and there's so many things going on in life, what I love is going back to the fundamentals a lot of the times, right? With the routines, right? Aristotle, you are what you repeatedly do. And what you do and what you've created is very fantastic. So I'd love to learn, and I'd love our listeners to learn more about what Lolly Coffee is, what the inspiration was behind that, as well as Unplugged Mornings and all of that. So I'm bringing them both up here so that everyone knows about this. Look it up, check it out. But in whatever order, let us know.
Yeah, so Lolly Coffee wouldn't exist if Unplugged Mornings didn't exist, because the idea came to me during an Unplugged morning. And I'll just give a brief backstory on Unplugged Mornings and how that came about, how that was born. In 2014, I was on a reality show where I lived in a cave for 60 days. No devices, stripped of every like worldly possession, didn't have anything I owned, which, okay, number one lesson there, we actually don't own anything in this life. It's all borrowed. It is all borrowed. How do you take care of things that are borrowed that you're going to get back? You take better care of them, right? And knowing that in any second, it could be taken away. Whether that's a family member, your car, your apartment, anything can be taken away. So realizing that was like, it got rid of the mine mentality of like, that's mine. That's mine. Don't touch that. Don't hurt that. Right? And it's just like...
That's so powerful.
Very powerful. Yeah.
I got rid of it. I was like, that's actually not mine. I don't own that.
Yeah. What I love, I forget where, it might have come from Fight Club, but it's like the things you own end up owning you.
Owning you.
You know?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Last year, I would open every talk with the question, is what you're consuming actually consuming you? Right? From the conversations, the people, the things we're eating and drinking, all of that.
Yes.
Okay, that was a side tangent.
Yeah.
So in the cave, I was fully unplugged. And I realized in that cave that there's so many things we plug into externally that bring us comfort, temporary pleasure. And that could be anything from my biggest fan that I need to sleep, my NutriBullet, if I need to have my smoothie. We plug into everything, do our hair, technology to have this conversation, to make money, all of that, right? And then we plug into other things like relationships, alcohol, drugs, like all these things that, again, might bring temporary pleasure. And then we're trying to fill a void when really we should be going internally to find that happiness, that joy, that inner spirit, all of that. It's an inside job. And I really do believe that all the answers that ever were or ever will be are within you. We just need to take time to get still and quiet to go in and access them. So it was in that moment I had a visualization that I was reaching for this external cord and unplugging it from all these external things and plugging it into my internal, like plugging it into myself. And I thought, wow, it took me living in a cave and being unplugged from all of these devices to realize this. And I want people to be able to do this, because after that experience, I'm like, I'm going to go to Africa for 6 weeks without my phone. I'm going to go and hike mountains. I'm going to do these cool things unplugged. But not everyone's going to want to do that or has the time to do it or desire. And I'm like, okay, unplugged mornings. Like after 8 hours of sleep, you wake up and you're fresh and full. So before you reach for the device and you plug back into the world and the noise and the chaos that will be waiting there for you, it doesn't matter at what point you reach for it. The emails are there, the text messages are there. And again, like we were just talking about, our body is impacted. We physically react, even if we try to mentally tell ourselves that, it doesn't matter, this text message or this email. We go into our meditation and that's all we're thinking about is that email and what it said, or we forgot to tell somebody something, or a client, is upset. Whatever the case may be, at that point, it's all reactive. And that's when we want to go into, you don't know what's going on in my life. Like, I can't believe, can't you be more flexible, right?
Yeah.
Instead of filling your cup up, and part of Unplugged, there's 9 steps. I won't go into all of them, but there's journaling and reading and movement and nourishment. And that's where Lolly Coffee comes in. But all of these things fill up your cup so you can then go serve from the overflow of joy and abundance and love and be more responsive versus reactive, right? Be more proactive instead of reactive. And so that text message might look more like, thank you so much for your patience and your flexibility. I really appreciate you. As opposed to, don't you know what I'm going through, and, a very reactive thing. So being like thankful and grateful and being able to respond with love and not like a hardened heart. So that's really what Unplugged is about and how it came into existence. And then in March of this last year, my Instagram account got hacked overnight, and all my business comes through Instagram. I have brand partnerships, I promote my retreats, all that kind of stuff. And I thought, shoot, all right, instead of freaking out, how is this happening for me? Maybe there's a new path for me outside of Instagram and technology and all of that. And so I went to do my Unplugged morning, and I sat down, started journaling, drinking my coffee, and I heard a voice in the back of my head, which was very clearly my grandfather's voice, that said, the cream will always rise to the top. And that's something he always used to say to me growing up. And it'd be like, when I'm crying because I didn't make the team or get the job or get the boy or whatever, and Lauren, come sit down. Remember, the cream will always rise to the top. And you're the cream,
I love that.
I got cream. But I was annoyed at the time. Now it's like the most powerful thing in my life that I think about every time something doesn't work out. And he's like, if you have patience and you have integrity, you tell the truth, you show up, you're a servant leader, and you have patience, and you just keep doing it, being a good person, eventually you'll get to the top and you get to stay there. Instead of stepping on people, lying, cheating, stealing, they get there faster, but they don't get to stay there. It's not sustainable. So in that moment, I knew Grandpa was telling me to start a coffee company.
This is amazing.
This is easy.
Oh.
And so that's where Lolly Coffee was born. And I knew I wanted it to be more than a coffee company. I knew that I wanted to honor my grandfather. I knew in that moment I wanted to name the first roast Raleigh Roast, that I wanted to give back to Parkinson's Foundation and to keep him at the forefront, remembering when things get hard, struggles, trials, roadblocks, whatever, the cream will always rise to the top. And so I knew this would be a legacy company that I would never give up on.
So incredible. And
it's one of my favorite episodes.
Literally is like one of the best coffees in the world. Like, obviously, you know, I have a lot of friends and I'm always about supporting their stuff. And I was like, yeah, it's probably like, you know, regular coffee or whatever. Like, I just didn't know, you know, I'm like, I don't know what, you know, she's doing, but it sounds awesome and I'm going to support her. And then I remember when I tried it, I was like, Lauren, this tastes so good. And I love coffee and I've always been about on this like healthy coffee journey because I learned a while ago how so much coffee is so unhealthy for us because there's so much mold toxins and all different sort of chemicals in there. And that's what made my stomach so upset. And anyways, I think I was drinking your coffee at your house and I was like, how does this taste so good? Just black, like nothing added to it. When usually I feel like I always have to add almond milk or something like that to even like it. And you were like, yeah, coffee is supposed to taste good on its own. And we're not supposed to want to add all this different stuff. And like I saw you try hundreds and probably thousands of different coffees to find the right one with the best quality. And now my mom, it's the only coffee she drinks. Oh, yeah? Literally, she's like, I got rid of, she has a bunch of other coffees all in her fridge, but she's like, I will not drink any other coffee now because of how clean it is and because of all the work that you did with it, it makes her feel a certain way. You know, she doesn't get jitters. She doesn't get the stuff that she got from even other quality coffees out there. Yeah. So I just want to celebrate you and congratulate you. If anyone's looking for healthy, good tasting coffee with a great message and mission behind it, Lolly Coffee is where it's at.
I had no idea about and maybe I did, and I just needed to hear it like this so profoundly. Of the cream always rises to the top. I was having a cappuccino earlier today, and now I kind of have coffee as a treat these days because I'm trying to wean off just a little bit, and I love to bring it back here and there between tea and coffee. And today I had a coffee, and I was out and about, so I didn't get to have the Lolly Coffee. But I was out and about today, and I normally don't get a cappuccino, and I did, and I opened it up, and I see all the foam rise to the top, or that is in the top. So when you're saying that, I'm like, oh yeah, and there's so many things that are happening in my life right now in transition. So I think a lot of the words that you're speaking are so serendipitous with like everything. And, first of all, the cave. So if we got everything from that, guys, you just go find a cave and be there for 60 days. No, I'm just kidding. If we got anything from that, you know.
That's what you need to do.
No.
But I think it's so important to remember, and I want everyone to know, like, being an entrepreneur is effing hard. Like, it is so hard, and I know what that feels like because I threw myself into it. I've seen what you've gone through, and to like find good quality stuff and then put the pricing right so you're actually making money, but then also marketing and all the people that want to take your money from you, like just everything, right? And so I see you and I celebrate you because I know how hard you've worked on this, and I also know that you won't give up. Like, I just know that, and I already see it being one of the most successful coffee companies out there. Like, I just already I project that for you. So like, when everyone is going through a hard time right now, I just like it is what you do. It's the belief. Like, it's the belief of like you when everything is going wrong, that belief of like, and for parents and grandparents or coaches, like how much it matters how you speak to kids. Like that instillment of, even if it bothered you in the moment, like the cream will always rise to the top, like that instillment of you, like speaking truth into you. And I remember. Just like the power of belief, like just the power of like, no matter what, if you identify with like, I'm the cream, I will always rise to the top, no matter what. Like that, no matter what challenge you're facing, if you just know that about yourself, through repetition and all the things, the unplugged mornings, surrounding yourself with the right people, listening to stuff like this, like you'll get through it and you will rise to the top. Like it's a lot of patience and a lot of resilience, but it's worth it.
We just did like a quantum thing because I was in my head being like repetition, and you started going repetition, because that's what I was thinking. Is my grandpa said it to me over and over, and it's repetition. It's getting the reps in that made me it sink in, because you can read a quote, you're like, that's a good quote, cool. But when you read it every day for 100 days, on the 100th day, it might actually get in and you get it, which means you actually change your behavior and get a different result. Like when I finally got it, I changed what I was doing. I could hear it so many times, but there's a certain way that you end up hearing it where you actually get it. And until you get it, you don't do anything different. You're just reading a quote.
We're creatures of habit. And so, those reps matter. And I love, before we transition into our Renegade Moment, for those tuning in, you're listening to Relationship Renegades on Fun for Life Radio, where we're talking with Lauren from Lolly Coffee. And one of the things before we go into Renegade Moment is I love that you're always listening to your grandfather, to God, to Source Universe, whatever anybody wants to call it. Like you're very in tune, it seems, to how Lolly Coffee came about and how the Unplugged Mornings came about and how like whatever else is about to transpire in your life. And so I just hope that people listening, that you too are listening. And one thing that I'd love to, if you guys stay tuned, because after we talk about the Renegade Moment, the breakthrough moment for Lauren, I want to talk about why you talk about how smile and silence is one of the two powerful tools. And I love to get into that after the Renegade Moment. So stay tuned for those listening.
Yeah, but let's get into the Renegade Moment. One of my favorite moments. This Renegade Moment, right? Being a renegade is all about choosing differently, going against the grain. And there's so many opportunities in life. And I think this is the biggest thing that a lot of people miss is the power of choice. That you get to every day, every moment, you have the opportunity to choose different, to be a renegade. And we'd love to hear from you. What's been one of your biggest like renegade moments where maybe you were stuck in something, in a pattern, in a cycle, and you were choosing a certain way? And that moment when you decided like, I'm done, enough is enough, I'm choosing different, I'm going to be a renegade right now. Like what's something that's coming up for you in one of your most powerful renegade moments?
The first thing that came to mind was actually leaving Kansas and moving to California when I was 21 years old. And I just knew I was made for more. And not that I couldn't do those things in Kansas, but I knew there was more of a world out there that I wanted to experience. And it was a very scary thing to do at 21 years old and move to Los Angeles. And I just remember packing up the U-Haul. And mind you, at this time too, I was leaving a relationship. And I think that was probably it. So the renegade moment was this person who just continually lied to me, and I kept believing them. I finally decided, and here's the cool thing with that, is I knew that if I made the decision and told him that I was making the decision, he would talk me out of it. So I made the decision for myself, and he played baseball, and he was going to be in Iowa, so he thought I was going to move to Iowa too. So I'm like, all right, you head on, and like in a couple of weeks, like I'll be there. But instead, I was packing up my U-Haul to literally move to California instead of to Iowa.
Wow.
And I remember like as he was like driving off, being like, "I love you." I remember being like, "F you."
Oh my god! Wow.
But it was such a like powerful decision for myself because I knew the pattern was, I'll tell you that I found out you were cheating. You're going to talk me out of it. I'm going to stay in this relationship. And that was just a defining moment where I was like, no, not only am I leaving you, but I am moving to California and I'm starting a totally different life. So it was kind of one of those like Tom Cruise moments of like jumping on the couch. I remember like the whole time driving to California, he was like reaching out and he thought I was driving to Iowa. And I'm like, yep, now I'm at this like whatever meeting at this place. And so then it was like when I got to California, I, took him off of Facebook. Back then we were on the Facebook relationship. And then I think I blocked him and he kept trying to get a hold of me from other numbers. Finally, I answered and I was like, I broke up with you and I'm dating someone else. And I'm like jumping on the couch. And he just couldn't believe it. So that was a moment. But I'm grateful again for him cheating on me because it got me to move to California. And I'm like, look at all the crazy cool things I've done since then.
Yeah.
100%.
So powerful. I mean, it's so powerful for you to just, when you chose different, right? You could have stayed. You could have been like...
Most people do.
Most people do, because it's scary to leave a relationship, it's scary to leave your hometown, especially when you're so young. And man, I just celebrate you because you did it. You were a renegade and you're like, nope, I'm going to create my own life and do it in a way that you, right? I think there's so much truth in that story of like, everyone's path is so different. And that might not be someone else's path, but you knew that if you talked to him about it, he would make you stay.
Oh, yeah. It happened 14 times.
Yeah. So like learning things about yourself and learning what you have to do to protect your peace and your well-being and your life. And to realize like, hey, that is your life and you get to make those decisions, and it's you making those decisions, no one else.
Yeah. And I think it's so powerful too, because I think most people know what they need to do. Like they know. And then you just justify and you're like, it could have been the worst. And I'm speaking for myself too, and all the people that we've talked to, right? Like, could have been the worst night, and it was like the 100th night that this happened, or the 1000th night. You're like, this is it. This is it.
Yeah.
And then you sleep on it, and then you probably hear the one. You sleep on it, you wake up, you're like, well, maybe it wasn't that bad. But it was like, no, that was really bad.
Yeah.
And you know, and so I think, and then you just keep doing it. So I think making a powerful move and a powerful choice like that, and then even adding to all this with the cherry on top, the changing of environment, which I think is very key too.
Powerful.
How environment is everything. So I feel like, very special. And and so I think that leads us and transitions us right now to one of the things that I loved learning more about you before the show about. I want to know more and have our audience know more about why you think smile and silence are two of the powerful tools.
I think smile immediately changes my state. Like just like sitting, it's almost like when I smile, I sit up and put my shoulders back and I'm in this power pose. And it just immediately, and also I feel like the smile connects us with other people. If I'm hiking and I smile and they smile, and now we've had a moment together, right? And I think it also invites people in and lets them know that you're soft and you're warm and you're welcoming and you're open to a conversation. And because otherwise we might have that resting whatever face and it closes you off again. So if you don't smile, maybe it blocks your blessing, because you may have blocked a conversation that could have changed your life forever.
Totally.
Yes.
Then silence. I was just talking actually to Nora, we all know Nora, last night on a walk about silence and how I can actually hear God's voice when I'm still. So there's this difference between praying, because it's like that's an action and maybe it's out loud, maybe it's internal, whatever, but just silence, I actually can hear. So I feel like praying is like talking to God, but silence is like hearing from him. And I get these downloads and these messages that otherwise wouldn't, like I said earlier, all the answers that ever were and ever will be are within us. If we don't get still and silent, I don't believe we can access or hear them. Right. And in that morning when I heard the cream will always rise to the top, I was in silence. I didn't have music playing. There wasn't people talking. It was just pure silence. And I've been getting these little messages and nudges even more lately. And it's so clear. It'll be like, let that person go, like surrender, let go, like actually really release. And I'm like, okay. And in that moment, I actually can do it. And I think you'll know in the moment too, when you've like released attachment. Because your nervous system regulates again, and you take a deep breath and you feel peace. I remember doing this like 2 weeks ago, and I felt like I was in a full day meditation. I was just like, I don't feel like it's so great. Like I'm happy, everything, all those colors, right? Everything was vibrant again.
Yes.
And so I would say those are the things, like why it's so powerful is like you can actually like hear and get the message that you need.
Oh, so powerful. So listen more,
so
guys. Let's
seriously, be
all
silent.
commit to. I'm going to commit right now, and anyone listening want to do this with me. Just commit to more listening. More silence, more listening, because that's when you get downloads, right?
It's one of my favorite scriptures. Be still and know that I am God.
Yeah, so powerful. Seriously. Because how many times we are blocking our blessings because we're not still and we're not silent and we're not listening. We're just trying to like think of all the ideas of like, no, I can figure it out. No, I'll do, you know what I mean? I'll just like work my way through it, And so I just think, man, listening.
When you said that earlier too, Emilio, about listening and being open, and we were talking about one of the last gifts that my grandfather gave me was that it's safe to feel, and because I was in that moment feeling with him, being seen, all of that, and I didn't realize that even after he passed, there's these messages, because there was this the last time I talked to him in person, like at his bedside, he grabbed my hands and said that my nails looked really pretty. And there are these white nails, and he's never said that. He's never like actually mentioned anything about appearance or anything. And so my mom happened to snap a picture at the same time. And so there's this picture of him looking at my nails, saying my nails are pretty. And even my grandma said, he's never said anything like that to me. And so I didn't know the meaning then, but because I'm listening and I'm open, I'm like, okay, what could that actually mean? So I hadn't got my nails done since that. So it had been 2 months, and I kept thinking, I need to get my nails done. and it seems like such a small, simple, like not important thing, but right, they're catching on things, they're getting caught in my hair, I'm annoyed. And I also kept being like, I don't have time to get my nails done. But really what I was saying is I don't have time for myself, and I'm not making myself a priority. And so I finally was like, okay, I'm going to go get my nails done. So I went and got my nails done, and I went to Trader Joe's to get some groceries. And the man checking me out at like my groceries literally looked at my nails and were like, your nails look really pretty. Your nails look really nice. And I thought, you're my grandpa. I said that, and he was like, I'm your grandpa. I'm like, sorry, I just got a message from my grandpa, because that's the last thing like he said to me when I saw him in person. And I feel like what he's trying to tell me right now is to take care of myself. That I'm not taking care of myself, because the fact that you noticed my nails and said something, no one ever says anything about my nails. And you're the Trader Joe's guy checking me out. Like, I was like, that is such a message from my grandfather to be like, take care of yourself. Like, you need to make time for yourself.
Well, and
saying you don't have time.
That's also the magic of that, I think it's an Einstein quote, says you can live as if everything is a miracle or nothing is a miracle. And more and more, I just really realize, right? That's a choice. Like, we all get to choose how we want to live. But there's so much more magic when you're open to the miracles all around you, right? Like, if you look for them, you will find them. But if you don't, you won't see them, because you're literally blocking it.
And it reminds me also what Rachel and I always talk about too, and I might chop up the quote, but it's, if you can't see God in all, you can't see God at all. And
that's a big one.
So, man, gosh, so many resonant things.
So many incredible things. Because of time, we've got to wrap it up. But favorite find. Lauren, what is a recent favorite find of yours? Could be song, book, movie, anything. Any sort of recent favorite find you want to share with the audience?
This is not recent, but this is a book I'm reading right now, The 4 Agreements.
Great book.
But I would say the Best Year Journal. This is a really great journal from Intelligent Change. They do the 5-minute journal too. And that has been really fun to go through. So I would say that's a good recent find.
Yes.
I love it. Okay, and special thank you, Lauren. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for being you. And I have one last question that I've been really sitting on. I wasn't going to ask, but I feel really inspired to.
Oh.
So, Lauren, you are one of the most special people to me in the whole world. And I just look up to you and I admire you. And I love you, and you've been like a soul sister to me ever since I met you. And it hasn't been that long, but it was like a spark in an instant. And will you be one of my bridesmaids at our wedding?
Oh my God, Rach!
Oh, baby love. I didn't even know she was going to ask you in this fashion.
We started and ended crying. That's a good show.
I'm like shaking. I really wasn't going to ask, but I just felt so overwhelmed because I was like, I really want the world to know how special this woman is, not only to me, but to like our relationship and our life. And I just love you so much, and it would mean the world to me if you want to.
I know.
I feel like you did the best.
I know.
I'm like, oh my gosh, yes. I would be so honored. I would be so honored.
Yay.
I feel like in shock right now. I've never been so surprised in my life, ever.
It's like, what is she going to ask me? My God.
I was like, I don't know what's about to happen. Oh my gosh.
Me neither, but I was listening. I was listening to God, and I kept getting this moment, like, babe. ask her. So
I love you.
I'm like shaking right now.
Thank you.
No, thank you. It's like an honor for me. So I love you, and yay!
I can't wait to be there.
Woo! Yes.
Woo! Next year, 2022.
2022.
How beautiful.
Well,
how beautiful.
Wow.
Everyone, thank you for sharing that moment with us, and definitely just, Lauren really is one of the most special people in the world. I really believe that. And Lauren, where can everybody find you so that they can go get Lolly Coffee, learn more about Unplugged Mornings, and just connect with you,
and
go to your retreats that you're doing?
Yes.
They can find me at your wedding as a bride. Yes, Lauren Donahue and Lolly Coffee. And I post about retreats and coffee and all fun stuff on there.
Okay, and spell out Lolly Coffee for everyone, like the website, so they know how to spell it.
LALEIGH coffee, and that's my name and Raleigh, so my grandpa. So Lolly, LALEIGH coffee.com.
I love it.
Amazing.
Okay, awesome.
Well,
we celebrate you. We love you.
We love you.
Thank you everyone for listening and tuning in. Please go check out Lauren and Lolly Coffee and Unplugged Mornings and Renew Retreats.
Yes.
And yeah, stay tuned guys for the next episode. And
You've been tuning into Relationship Renegades on Fun for Life Radio. We'll see you on the other side. We love you all.